Okay, so those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. This is the fourth edition of my Tim Talk, and we're going to be covering the Samsung FJM systems. We have a high wall system, which is the Quantum 2.0, and we also have a four-way cassette as well. Those of you that are coming back, welcome back, obviously. But those of you who are joining for the first time, I'll just give you a really brief introduction to myself. I really want to get into the disassembly. And that's really what I'm going to focus on, is disassembling these things and talking you guys through the disassembly, going over the maintenance procedures that you would do as you're disassembling it, because with these systems, maintenance is going to typically involve some sort of disassembly. So it's going to be very useful. We're going to go step by step. Those of you that have joined us before already know that I got a little head cam that I do, so you're going to be able to get that first person view. And if at any point along the way you need me to stop and go over something, just put it up in the chat and they will let me know what's to take a little more time on certain areas. But you'll see with the first person view, you guys are gonna get a real hands-on feel as much as we actually can through a webinar. And as well as, I also want to put it out there that if this is something that you would like me to come to your place of business or your warehouse or shop or anything, I am 100% willing and able to bring what I have here today to you and do some hands-on training with your guys or your staff, or maybe just you personally, and then you can teach your guys. So I'm totally open for that. Only thing I ask is that you go through your sales consultant to set those up, and then they get scheduled out with me. I've gone up all the way as far as St. Augustine to do these. So by all means, as long as we have a heads up notice, I am totally willing to come out there, spend a couple hours. I think it was about a 2.5 hour session that we did. I can make it shorter. We can go over whatever you want. So I just want to put that out there so that everybody that's watching today knows that is available for you. And before I start, also, I want to let everybody know that Samsung makes a contractor HVAC app. They make a SmartThings app. The difference between the two is that Samsung's HVAC app, that was made for the contractors and the technicians in the field to help the troubleshooting process, to help the warranty registration process, for just making life easier. With the mini splits, a lot of contractors find these things to be a little intimidating. I don't think they should be, and hopefully after I do some disassembly on these systems today, it'll help you feel more confident if you're not selling mini split systems, to at least consider selling the Samsung line of mini split systems, because they are fairly easy to maintain and disassemble, which makes life a lot easier. And the use of that contractor HVAC app is going to help you as well to have your technicians diagnose. There are error codes in there. You can scan the units and you can look up videos that give you step-by-step instructions on how to diagnose the system. So you may not even need to call tech support. And that being said, I want to make sure that everybody on here, after this is done, make sure you save my number on your phone. I am to be your first call for Samsung. So if you have any issues or questions, then by all means call me first with technical questions before you call Samsung. If for some reason you can't get a hold of me, call Samsung. But I am going to be your first line of defense when it comes to trying to solve and troubleshoot these systems. If you're looking for job applications and stock and pricing, then you're going to have to reach out to your sales consultant for those needs. But as far as contractor HVAC app, it's not, you do not need to be a pre-approved contractor to use that app, that Samsung HVAC app. Just look for it in your app store, whether it's on iPhone or Android, and you'll be able to download that. It's a blue app. It's the Samsung really big HVAC. When we do the first person view, I'll probably get on my other cell phone and at least show you what the app looks like. But you don't need to be pre-approved. Anybody can download it. Anybody can use it. So that's a very useful tool that I highly suggest everybody that's watching this video download today. And then above that, Samsung has come out with a Smart Things app. The Smart Things app is what you're going to have your customer or the consumer, whoever is purchasing and using the system, you're going to want to have them download that app. That app is going to enable the Wi-Fi access for these things. The Quantum 2.0 is out of the box, ready for Wi-Fi. There's no additional accessories needed for it. So they can download the Smart Things app. And with the Smart Things app, they're able to control several smart home functions, from door locks to rings, their smart thermostats, all utilizing one app. So that comes in very handy for the homeowner. A lot of homeowners like that. There's geofencing, and you can really get more involved into that. That probably can be a webinar later on in the future in its own. But I just want to make sure that you know that Samsung Smart Things app is what you're going to be using for your homeowners. That's what they're going to download. The Samsung HVAC app is, you do not need to be pre-approved, and that's going to be for you and your technicians. Okay, so a little bit about myself really quick. I'm a state A licensed contractor. I was contracting for about 30 years with a small family business. We specialized, I can't even say we specialized, because we did everything from ice machines, walk-in coolers, chiller systems, mini split systems, residential, commercial, small family business. With that comes a lot of the multitasking that a lot of you guys are out there. So when you guys are on a job, and you call me and you're like, well, this is going on, and I have, customers saying this, and maybe it's a warranty issue, and you're like, I have been there, I have done that, so I can really, I can definitely relate to the struggles that goes into being a contractor, having to deal with the homeowners and then having to deal with the distributors as well. So my job for you, understanding that, is to make that process as pain-free as possible. So by all means, even if it's not Samsung, I'm here, Cooper Hunter, Rude, basically anything Tropic sells equipment wise, feel free to give me a call. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and briefly go through some of the items that we sell when it comes to maintenance that you may want to purchase when you're going to be cleaning these systems. First off, what I really like is we sell a new Calgon. It's basically a battery powered pressure washer. I'm going to bring it a little closer to the camera so you can get a little better look at it. So that's basically what it is. So definitely check. I definitely highly recommend this, because if you're working in a facility and you don't have access to a hose, or just makes your life a whole lot easier, you can fill this up. It's battery powered. It has a 12-volt plug, so you can charge it from the vehicle. It's going to make your life a lot easier. You can get into these mini split systems and clean them, but this is obviously way more useful than just mini splits. If you want to clean some condensers on a 10-story roof, there's no hose up there, and you need to clean a condenser, well, this is probably going to be your best bet right here. So aside from mini splits, highly recommend this. We had one, we loved it. One thing I can tell you is we lost the charger on ours. Ours was an older model. So definitely make sure you, these do have little pockets so you can keep the chargers in there, but make sure you or you guys don't lose those chargers, because they're kind of a pain to find once you lose them. But anyways, what's good about this one that mine didn't have is this has that 12-volt attachment, so you can plug it into the cigarette lighter of the work vehicle and keep it charged. So that's a great benefit when you're out in the field and you don't have to worry so much about, did I charge it last night, or you have something coming up the day before, so somebody forgot to plug it in the wall, which I had to deal with several times. And of course, anytime you're cleaning and you're dealing with chemicals, you want to make sure you have all your proper PPE. You want to make sure you have your glasses, because I personally just have experience of working on this and getting acid splashed in my eyes. I'd probably recommend even better the full face shield. Make sure you have gloves. I can tell you, I've learned the hard way being an addict, cleaning coils and having acid spill on me and just keep going, and then having to deal with the consequences after. So highly recommend using rubber gloves, some kind of gloves that aren't going to, just let the chemicals go through, and as well keep some water on hand. So if you do get chemicals in your eye, you can flush it out and wash your hands quickly. One of the things I will recommend, especially when it comes to mini splits, when you are cleaning these coils, it's very important that you don't use a really aggressive cleaner, I guess is the best way to say it. So I have just a couple of cleaners. This is a Evap Fresh no rinse cleaner. I still recommend rinsing it, even though it does say no rinse. But I know with the no rinse, I already know that it's not going to cause much damage because it's not going to be a very aggressive coil cleaner. A lot of times using something like this, along with this is an Evap Fresh no rinse. If you're cleaning the coil, it's always great with these mini split systems to put something in there that's going to help freshen up. A lot of times you'll clean a coil and using like Black Max or something really heavy, you clean the coil and you turn the AC on and the customer's like, so I've had some customers say it doesn't really smell any different, right? And we know that really isn't the intention for us. We're trying to get all the dirt and gunk off, but you'd be surprised when you clean the system if you put some sort of air freshener or some kind of something in there. So when you turn that AC on and it comes out smelling like lemons or whatever it is, your customer, you'd be surprised how much more your customer is going to be like, wow, I could smell the cleanliness, right? So that's definitely important to do that. It's good customer service. It's good for your homeowners. They're going to be happy, and it's going to leave them with a good impression of yourself. So we do offer those things. So I highly recommend after cleaning it, put some sort of fresh scent cleaner of some sort on there, so that when it turns on, the homeowner is going to be like, wow, I can smell the cleanliness, right? Now, when it comes to cleaning drain pans out of these systems, we are going to pull them out. So you're going to be able to see how easy the quantum is to the high wall quantum is to service and maintenance and break down. You're really going to be impressed. The first time I took the system apart, I was blown away on how quick I was able to do it. When I brought the system to the contractor up in St. Augustine, their guys tore the system down out with me barely having to explain anything, and they had minimal mini split experience prior to that. So it really is a testament to what Samsung is trying to do here, and they're doing a great job at it, trying to make this system as simple as possible and as pain-free as they can to service, maintain these systems and install them as well. And a lot of the stuff that Samsung is focusing on as well is trying to design their system in a way that's going to prevent unnecessary callbacks. And we'll go into that a little more later. This is Viper. We saw this at Tropic Supply. This is a Viper drain pan cleaner. This is great to, after you clean the drain pan, to kind of just spray in the drain pan, leave there as you do the maintenance, and then on your way out, just spray it in the pan, coat the pan with that. So these are very mild, so it's not going to cause any damage to the system. If you're going to a mini split system and you're doing the maintenance, if it's a system that you have not installed, whether it's Samsung, and like a lot of this applies to mini split systems across the board. So all these things can be used on the Cooper Hunter that we offer. And if you're selling another brand and you're just still not convinced after you see today's episode and you're installing another brand, these are still great tools and great products to use on whatever you're doing the maintenance on. So you'll be able to use a lot of what I talk about here today to do maintenance for the most part in any system. But that being said, if you come upon a system and you're going to do a maintenance and they don't have a surge protector, I highly recommend a surge protector. This is the surge protector that we are currently selling on the shelf. So this would be a great addition to bring to your customer and say, hey, listen, I'm servicing your main split system. I noticed you don't have a surge protector. Power surges are known to cause havoc on mini split systems, really on a lot of the higher end systems that have these circuit boards and everything. So even if it's just not a mini split, this is still a great product for you to provide for your homeowner. With that being said, I'm going to grab the last item that I will be demonstrating. This is the bib toolkit, and I'm going to be showing you guys how to use this. This is going to come in handy when you need to clean the coil on a high wall, or clean the blower wheel, or really do a deep clean on these mini split systems. Now, this is made only for the high wall system. This is made by New Calgon, and it's called the Clean Guard system. It's very reasonable. Reach out to your sales consultant or go to your local branch. By all means, I recommend picking up this and then going to either Home Depot or Lowe's, get a 5-gallon bucket, get a lid, take this bib, put it inside that bucket and keep it in the truck. So that way, anytime you go out, you'll have the bucket, because basically when you open this up, you'll see that there's a long in here, and that's going to basically funnel all that dirty water down into your 5-gallon bucket. And like I said, I will be putting this on in a few minutes, so that way, not on myself, but on the unit. I just want to make sure there's no confusion, because that would be kind of awkward. All right. Now, if there's no other questions, or if there's no questions at all, I want to go ahead. I'm going to switch to that first person view. And basically, only thing I'm going to be using to disassemble the systems today is just a Phillips head screwdriver. And I will show you which one I'm using in a minute. So if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and swap the camera view.
No questions. We're good to go.
Perfect. Thank you, Todd. Good to hear your voice. I wasn't sure if you were going to join us today. All right. So as you see, this is my display. This is basically what I would be bringing to your place of business if you want to do some hands-on training. Today, let me get this out of the way here. At any time, if you need me to slow down or stop, please let me know. But basically, this is all you're really going to need. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because the length of this screwdriver, this is I believe a number 2, is just a little smaller than a number 2 Phillips head screwdriver. You want at least about a 6 to 8 inch length, because when you go to get into the blower wheel, it's going to allow you to get past some of the turning vanes and into the actual fin to get to the set screw. And especially on other systems, what's great about the Samsung is that and you'll see later that the drain pan comes out very easily. So it allows quick access to get to that blower wheel, which you'll see in a few minutes. Another few items here that I have are going to be our indoor air quality options. The N-Wave is going to be great if you have a system that for some reason is giving a dirty sock smell, which has been known to happen in some of these mini split systems. The I-Wave is going to eliminate that. Or if you have it in an area that there's a lot of unwanted smells that you don't want to have, recirculating into the homeowner's room or whatever it may be, the I-Wave is going to be your best bet. The Mini UV is a great system as well. They're both going to be installed in different locations, which I will show you as we start to disassemble the Quantum 2.0 high wall system, as well as the 4-way cassette. This I do want to mention, obviously it's an LED light. If you put this in a room, or if you put this on a high wall system that's in a bedroom, and the customer, the homeowner, wants pitch black darkness in their room and they can't sleep if there's even a little light on, I wouldn't recommend using this. What's great about the I-Wave is it does so much more. It does eliminate COVID, so it has been tested as far as that's concerned. So this does not produce any lights. So this in a bedroom setting where somebody's going to be sleeping at night is going to be the better option by far. But if they don't want to go to the upgrade, just make sure if they do choose the LED that you mentioned to them, that there is a light. The light does stay on, and that may or may not keep them up at night, depending on the homeowner. This is something that more advanced later on. This is an SNET tool. I have it on because I've been doing some testing. That's so if you have a question on what that is, this just basically allows you to get your PC, get into the system, and get basically a window into what the system is doing. Those are available. Just contact your sales consultant for those as well. Now, with the Samsung condensers, cleaning the condenser coil, you can clean it from the outside, as you can see. And while I'm looking at this condenser coil, I do want to mention that Samsung has provided us with a corrosion resistance coating on these systems. On their coils, all their coils have been coated and they've actually been tested. A lot of the other systems will say that they're coated, but there has been no testing on it. Not to say that it's not a valid coating or corrosion resistance coating, but at least with the Samsung system, if you have a customer that is closer to the beach and it has questions about it, you can at least offer them and tell them, say, listen, the Samsung system, it has passed a 480-hour salt spray test on their coils. So it's rated to be near the beach. And from the few that I've seen already installed, I haven't seen much corrosion on them. We'll see as time goes on, but it actually has been tested. So it is a tested coil. It's a rated coil to be near the beach. So it's near the beach is going to have issues no matter what system you put in, because the only thing on these that's coated is the coil. The cassette is a powder coat. All the corners are rounded off, so you don't have to really worry about cutting yourself. As you can see, I'm not cutting myself. And it is coated, and there is galvanized steel, but those have not been coated with that anti-corrosion coating. To get to the fan and rinse it out, I usually recommend anytime somebody is cleaning one of these coils, you really want to get into the base pan of this system. There are drain ports on it. When installing the systems, I typically recommend installing them on a wall bracket. When you install these on the ground, a lot of times you get leaves in there, dirt in there, ants and whatnot. So putting it off, installing it on wall brackets helps keep it out of the elements. Plus you have people that may be cutting grass, hitting it with the weed whacker. But those instances and those situations where it is on the ground, you're going to notice, just like any condenser, you're going to get a lot of buildup in the bottom of this. And anytime we do a maintenance, we want to clear all that out. We don't want all that dirt and grime just sitting along the bottom of the coil, because that's going to speed up whatever corrosion process there is. It is coated, but that doesn't mean we want to throw salt on and throw dirt on it, right? We still want to keep it clean. We still want to maintain it. So with the Samsung systems, there's only 2 screws that hold this grill on. So that's definitely the path I recommend when cleaning the system. You don't need to take the top off. If you do take the top off, you're going to want to be careful because the board is up on top. So if you're doing maintenance or anything with water on the Samsung condenser, or really any mini split condenser, to say that it's always best to just go ahead and take this grill off, clean it, and if you need to get into the system after, then you can go ahead and disassemble the top and take the front cover off. This whole front cover does come off. It'll give you access to the compressor. It'll give you access to all the EEVs and the 4-way valve, everything that's in here that you need to test, the reactor and all those other items. You'll be able to get to that if you take just a few screws off, take the top off, take the whole front off. I'm not going to get into the disassembly of the condenser unless you guys, towards the end, if we have time and you want me to, then absolutely, by all means, we will. So as you see, 2 screws, basically you just take it, turn it, very simple, comes off. To get the fan blade off, you're just going to take, I believe this is either 13 mil or a 1/2 inch socket. You can take this off, that fan blade will slip right off. And then you can go ahead and clean the bottom of the condenser. The compressor is shielded. So by just removing the cover, you're not going to have to worry about getting water on any of the electronics, the control boards, terminals, or anything inside the unit that's going to cause a short to ground. So it's important, like I said before, if you're going to clean the system and you're going to use water, only thing I recommend taking off is the grill and the fan. Once you take this fan off, I recommend getting a little putting some grease on the fan shaft, so that way when you slide the blade back on in the future, it's going to prevent it from seizing on the motor. Just like basically the same procedure. Anytime you change a blower wheel or blower motor or remove a blower wheel, we should always be greasing that shaft down so we make sure we don't cause an issue later on where it can rust, corrode, or seize onto the shaft. And then it's just going to be a headache. As you can see, with these are plastic, so you're really not going to be able to get a puller on it. So if you can't get it off, chances are you're just going to order another fan blade and a fan motor. So, but in my experience with mini split systems in general, very rarely have I had to change a fan blade or a fan motor. So that's a good thing. So like I said, you have your pan down there. There are some drain ports at the bottom of the condenser. Some of the condensers come with a little attachment that's a little 90 to attach a drain hose on. If this is above a window or above a door, you would use that item so that way the water is not dripping onto somebody that's walking out the door. It's just basically a little 90-degree with a hose barb on the end of it, and then just run that off to the side. But you can see you can get to the coil, rinse the coil out, and then you put the cover back on, and then move on to the indoor systems. Would probably be your next best bet. Real quick, just wanted to show you. This is where your control wires are and everything. There is typically a cover that covers this. But I wanted to mention before I move on, if for any reason you have to remove a high wall, or you have to remove the 4-way cassette, or basically what I'm saying is pump down the system, you're going to pump it down the normal way. You're just going to shut down the liquid line side of the valves. You're going to shut that down, and then you're just going to allow the suction to draw all that freon back into the compressor. You could do it one at a time if you want. I typically will throw my gauges. If I'm doing a multi-zone, I'll throw my gauges on both of them and let them pump down. You will have to pump them down individually, and then I'll just close down the high side valves on these and let it close all the way down. Once it pumps down almost to zero, I don't recommend going into zero, but just before zero, maybe 5-10 psi, shut the system down and close the suction, just like typical system, residential system, how you pump it down. There are no questions. I will go ahead and move on to my favorite part of the presentation, and that's going to be disassembling the high wall. No questions?
No, we look good.
Thank you, Todd. Okay, so when you come up to the high wall, this is the Quantum 2.0. I love this high wall. I am a big fan of Cooper & Hunter, but when I took this Samsung high wall apart for the first time, it was somewhat enjoyable. I'm starting to turn into this HVAC nerd. So your guys are really gonna just, especially once if I can get to your shop and I can show your technicians and your installers how simple these things are to install, they're really gonna be impressed. It's gonna take that, and I only say this because I've come across it a lot from homeowners that when I was in the business or on your side of the desk, I like to say, a lot of calls I would get were from homeowners that say, listen, I have a mini split and I can't find anybody to work on it. So if you're not currently installing mini split systems, if you're not currently doing service calls for mini split systems, no matter what brand it is, I highly recommend you do, because you're going to see a lot of these in the future. They're becoming more common. They are super high efficient. They're very versatile. They're very diverse. There's different options. You have the 4-way cassette. You have a 360 cassette that Samsung provides. That's a beautiful unit. If you have not seen a 360 cassette, I highly recommend that you reach out to your sales consultant and talk to them about that, because they offer, it's just a really good looking system, especially in a commercial application. But there's such a wide variety that these systems come. We're offering now the multi-position air handler, which is basically, if you haven't seen it, it's a standard air handler, but you can match it up with these super high efficient condensers. So you can offer at actually a very good price, a super high efficient unit to your customer. So I'm not going to go too much into those. I'm just really excited about that Samsung and that Tropic is offering this. So by all means, reach out to your sales consultant, and they'll be able to walk you through all the different options that Samsung can provide for you guys. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start with disassembling.
And we got a couple of questions.
Okay.
They're asking if pumping down a mini split is recommended or approved procedure by the manufacturers.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. You'll actually see it in the manuals. So by all means, you can pump them down. Now, what I've seen in the past with different systems, some of the older systems, you may have to go into a pump down mode on different brands. I would suggest per manufacturer, you look into that. What I have done in the past, when I had my guys, my technicians and my installers in the field, if they went to a system that we didn't install and it was a brand that we didn't work on often, your safest bet, if you're unsure, would be to just reclaim the Freon. So just get your reclaimer out, reclaim all the Freon. Most of these, actually just about every mini split system I have ever worked on will offer in the on the nameplate where you find the let's see, it's on the side here, but they will tell you how much Freon to use. So if you pull all the Freon out, you'll see right here, I don't know if you can see that, but it says R410A. It tells you kilograms, tells you in ounces, weigh the charge back in. So if you're not sure, if you're not working on the Samsung and you're not sure if you could pump down the system, or if the system doesn't allow you to pump down, some of the systems out there will require you to put it in a pump down mode. But with the Samsung, you do not. By all means, when in doubt, pull the Freon out, if that makes any sense. And then obviously do what you need to do, reinstall the system, leak check. With the mini split systems, Samsung's mini split systems, they recommend a 3-step leak check process. First at 200 PSI, then at 400 PSI. And if it passes the 200 and 400, then you're going to go up to 600 PSI. At 600 PSI, you should get no bubbles or leaks on the flares. And then after that, you can pull the nitrogen, or I'm sorry, you pull the nitro out, and then you can go ahead and they recommend a triple evac. I'm sure you guys can, if you don't know, familiar with that, you can look that up on YouTube. Basically, it's putting a vacuum on the system, breaking the vacuum with some nitro and doing it 3 times, pulling it down finally to a below 500 microns. That's the recommended method. But like, to answer the question, with Samsung, you can pump it down and you'll be good to go.
And a follow-up question to that, we have somebody asking, why do we pump down?
So if you're going to remove, say, okay, so I've come across instances where you have this high wall there and the customer wants to paint the wall, or just say for some reason you have a leak, right? Or something happens and there's damage to this system, but you need to remove this system, but you're obviously, it's not going to be a full change out. You're going to, just like any other system, you're going to want to pump the Freon down, keep that Freon. You don't want to lose it. That would be a situation. If you have a customer that, okay, they have the high wall, they want to move it to another area, you need to pump down the system. Anytime you're breaking that, you need to cut the copper, extend the copper, or relocate the system, or remove the system from the installed location at any time. That's when you're going to want to pump it down. Other than that, doing what I'm doing today, you will not need to pump down the system to do the maintenance. Hopefully that answers that question. So I guess we're good.
Yes, we're good.
Thank you, sir. All right, with this Samsung Quantum system, I really don't need the screwdriver for the most part until we start taking the main base cover off. When you approach a Samsung system, the typical maintenance that you're going to show your homeowner is cleaning the filter. The filter, a lot of mini split systems, you'll see that they basically open up, the front cover will open up, and then the filters are tucked inside. That's fine. What I've noticed on those type of systems is that there's little tiny brackets on either side of the high wall system, and those little plastic hinges, I guess you could call them, they tend to break over time. If you're too rough with them, they tend to crack as well, and then you're stuck having to order a whole new cover. It's not good. I've seen it happen on brand new systems installed. What's great about the Samsung is you don't need to do that. You basically just pop the cover, pop the top filter off. This is an electrostatic filter. It is a finer grade mesh than a lot of the mini split systems. Well, just about every mini split system I've seen out there, it is a finer grade mesh, so it's going to catch more dust and debris before it gets into the coil. So that's a big bonus using the Samsung system. And like I said, you saw it just came off super easy. Another thing that I've seen in the past is that you'll see that you'll go to a house, or maybe it's installed in a restaurant, and a customer or even sometimes a contractor will have, you'll have the filter here, and the air does draw in. And that being said, you want about a minimum of 6 inches above this unit to allow the air to circulate through it. Then we'll take like a hog's hair filter or some kind of dust lock filter, and then we'll cut it and they'll put it on top as an additional filter to the existing filter that's provided by Samsung or whatever mini split you're using. These are not, excuse me, these are not high static systems. So that being said, any anything that's going to prohibit the air from flowing in the way it was designed it could definitely cause you issues and problems in the future. So if you come into a unit and you see that on any type of mini split system, it's very important that you should tell the homeowner that they shouldn't be doing that. It's really not recommended. So the next step, if you need to get a little more access, what's great about these systems is, and then you'll see everything basically, it's almost self-explanatory. You see a little groove here, it's basically made to just put your hands on it and just pop this off. Now you have full access to inspect the coil. You can even get in there and look, and you'll be able to see if the drain pan is overflowing. So before you don't even need to take a screw off to do the maintenance inspection. I'll get into where we're going to installing the I-Wave. We'll be installing in the back here, and when I take this cover off, you'll get a clearer view. Now you got this system. One thing I want to mention is I got a couple calls on these systems. When you with the controller, this turning vane is motorized, so you can set it to oscillate. You can set it and stop it at any position along its open and closed path. These sideways left and right turning vanes, they are not motorized. I did have a contractor where the homeowner was just like, oh, I'm not going to pay you until these move. But these are not, and most systems are not either. These aren't going to be motorized. So you basically, there's just a little thumb tab here, and you just basically are going to move it to whatever direction you want. So they are independent. So you can have the air blowing out this way, straight, both to one side or to the right side. There is a auto start button here. It's kind of hidden in the screen. When you start this system up, there will be a display. I had the system powered down because we're going to be disassembling it, but if the homeowner doesn't have the remote, they can go ahead and press that power button, and it's going to come on, and it's going to come on to the last set mode. So if it was set on cool, when you press that, it's going to go back to that setting as well. Okay, so you're installing the system, or you come to the system to do the maintenance, and you want to check for leaks, or just you want to see if the flares are leaking or have any kind of boil or anything on that would be evidence of a leak. What's great about that is you just pull, just similar like the other cover, you're just going to pull on either side and just work your way across. And then what's great about this is you got full access. I'm gonna get a little closer here and shine some light for you guys. But you have full access underneath. If you have a condensation pump, typically the condensation pump would go in this general area here. So you'd be able to pull that out without having to pry the system away from the wall. You'll be able to get to your condensation pump and clean that out. As well as I have on this system, I ran the copper out the side, out the right side here. There are little cutouts. This isn't the typical install, but because of the display and the way I set the system up, that's just how I did it. But typically the copper, the control wire, the power wire is going to go out the right side if at all possible. If not, and you do need to do the flares and run the copper out the left side of the system, what's great about this is there's just so much room to gain access to the drain line, to the flares for testing. It's just, this really for me was a game changer, because typically you have to take screws off, take the whole panel off. And if you've worked on these systems before, you know how that plastic feels like you're going to constantly break it. Well, what's great about the Samsung is they've alleviated that worry. You just pop that panel off and you can do your inspections. You can install the unit without even taking this cover off, because the electrical connections aren't even behind this either. The electrical connections are right in there. So you don't need to remove a screw to install or do your basic checkups on this system. Now, to get deeper into it and do a deep clean, you will, but very minimal, very minimal. Once we get to this point, as you can see, you got pretty good access to everything. But we want to go ahead and take this cover off. So we want to take the cover off. There's only 2 screws. There's one here. And how are we doing on time? Because I tend to talk too much. Anyone? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay.
It's
So on the
8:41,
back-
Tim. 8:41,
wow.
so you've got 19 minutes.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Yeah, I talked too much. I apologize. We may go a little over, guys. So basically with these, you'll see this little tab right here. You're just going to take your thumb, you're going to pop that off and just work your way across the unit. That's covering that one. And then that's it. Pretty simple. Then you go ahead and take this off and clean it. Pretty straightforward. Okay, you got your coil. If you're going to install your iWave, this is going to be the place that you're going to stick the iWave. The iWave is basically a ribbon, and it has a Velcro that you're going to stick to the unit. What's great about the Samsung versus a lot of other systems, look how much room you have. You have a lot of room here. A lot of times on the other systems, they're super close to the rear. So this is there is a rear drain pan here that's part of this, part of the mounting bracket. And there are two little tiny gutters that are on either side that you'll need to make sure you clean out as well. But there's just so much access to get to it, and then you can go ahead and mount your iWave there. So now I'm going to go ahead and take out the drain pan. On some of the other systems, the drain pans, like on the Cooper Hunter, unfortunately, the drain pan is not removable. What's great about this is that this really, it's just like you just, I don't know, it's super fun to take off, right? Because look, it's already off. How awesome is that, right? Now you can go ahead and you can clean this. You can remove it. I'm not going to remove it because I have the drain line all tied in with a bunch of zip ties. But as you can see, you don't necessarily need to remove the drain pan fully, but it comes out. If I wanted to remove it, I would just have to unplug this little wire from inside the control board here. And then there's a little screw on the back of the drain line that keeps it secure onto the drain pan. But for doing your basic maintenance, you really don't need to, because as you saw, no screws, and it came completely off. Then you can just go ahead and take your brush. I recommend bottle brushes. That's going to be your friend when you work on these systems. You can pick up a pack of bottle brushes from like Harbor Freight, a hardware store, for a few bucks. And as you can see here, I'll just show you right here, there is an option for running the drain line out the left side versus the right. Like with those bottle brushes, you can see your little port there. If you're doing a maintenance, I recommend just taking, pretend this was the bottle brush. I just recommend taking that bottle brush, shoving it in there and getting whatever, because there may be a little debris in there or some kind of gunk. You want to get that out, flush it out. If you have the battery powered pressure washer, you take your nozzle and just kind of squirt it in that drain line to flush out all that gunk out of there. So that's like a night and day difference from most of the systems out there, at least that I've worked on. Just taking out this drain pan was super awesome. So far I've only taken 2 screws off, and I got access to most of the system. Now, one thing I want to do real quick, let's put this back on. Be a little better. Kind of hard to do with this camera on my head. But I'm just going to go ahead and throw this bib kit on real quick before I forget. And like I said before, this, as you can see, I could spend a lot of time showing you guys how to work on these things and disassemble them. That's why I'm really trying to let you guys know that I am available to do some hands-on, training with your guys, so that way they can actually get their hands on. We can take a little more time and do that one-to-one training. When it comes to this, installing this bib kit, you're going to see there's a big hole on one side. This is basically just going to go over the entire system. There is like a little cord that's inside here, and you want to get that little cord tucked in behind the wall. And you'll take your drain pan, keep it inside, and there's a little, I don't know what you call it, but something you can use to tighten that cord. So basically, once you wrap around, you're going to tighten that cord. You basically just tighten that cord real tight. That way it gets in, and this cord is going to tuck up underneath here. And then once it's on the system and you got it all tucked up nice and neat, you're going to take this tail here, and you're going to just drop it into your 5-gallon bucket. And then that's going to fill up as you clean the system. It'll just fill up And then once you're done, you can pull this off. Another recommendation that I will tell you to do whenever you're doing a deep clean on these systems would be to remove the blower wheel, which you're going to see me do right now. Removing the blower wheel, the reason why I recommend it, I've seen a lot of companies, and I've seen actually my guys in the field, and I've actually done it myself too. You're like, well, removing the blower wheel is a pain, and you know we all know how these get really clogged with dirt. You can see the little turning vanes; they are close together. So you just put the bib on and you just hose it off with your, or you know, you get the pressure cleaner. You can just clean it into place. You can. The issue that I have with that, an issue that I've come across, is that on these systems, you will get water onto the blower shaft. And if you see, this is pretty tight in here. So it's not like you can get a puller in later. That water sits in there, and it could actually cause it to seize onto the blower. So if later on in the future you need to take that off, you won't be able to. So I always recommend, whenever possible, you know, maybe sometimes it doesn't, it's not as easy to do. I recommend removing the blower wheel as much, you know, every time, just because then once you take this off, you can go ahead and get that grease and you can put it on the shaft. That way you don't have to worry about the future. There is a set screw. You can see this little tiny pocket here that they made. You're basically going to just give a couple turns. I don't really recommend removing it because sometimes it falls out and you can't find it, and it's not a standard screw. All the other screws on this system, they can be interchangeable. They don't necessarily need to go in the same spot. So that makes disassembly easier. But that set screw that's on the blower wheel, that is a different screw altogether. So you don't want to lose that. So I've taken the two screws out on this side. Another thing you want to be careful is, if you can see right here, there is a little tiny, it's like a rubber retainer that's going to hold the end of the shaft here. So when we got the blower wheel loose, the only thing we're going to need to pull up on this, and you see that little, I always recommend taking this off first, because a lot of times you're in a different situation and you pull it out, this falls, goes under the couch, you can't find it, it's black, you're in a hard time finding that in certain locations. Also, I don't know if you can see it, there is a little bit of grease in here, so I always recommend putting a little bit of grease in there as well when you finish. And then basically you're just going to pull the blower wheel out. And that's it. So I've only removed two screws. Well, two screws take the cover off, two screws for the end of the coil, one set screw, and I got the blower wheel out. As you can see, pretty easy. And that was something that really impressed me about the Quantum 2.0. Now, any other questions on the high wall? I'm just going to go do an overview of the four-way cassette if there is no more questions.
No, everything looks good, Tim. Just real quick though, can you point out just the two remaining screws, the one that pulls the electrical panel and the one that pulls the blower motor?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. If you're going on the system, you need to remove this panel right here. If you need to gain access, you see, I just basically, this comes right off. You got full access. Let me get the flashlight. You have full access to do all your checks. This system communicates in volts DC. That being said, before I forget, this system, Samsung has came up with a great way to install a float switch. On a lot of other systems, you'll see that manufacturers really won't tell you how to hook up an overflow safety switch. Well, with Samsung, they have provided, on the 2.0 systems, they have provided this little plug. It's a drain pump interlock. Basically, you're going to take this harness, you would take this little plug here, you would cut this, and this is what you're going to wire your float switch to. Any kind of overflow safety switch, this is what you're going to break this. And then you're basically going to plug that in. There's a little harness. Where is that little bugger? There's the harness here. And then you're just going to take this harness, and you're just going to plug it in. And then that's for your float switch. What's great about this is that other systems, they may tell you to break the return air temperature sensor. When you do get an error code, you're going to get a sensor code or some kind of communication error code. This, if you get an overflow situation, it's going to point you in the right direction. As a technician, you'll know, okay, I have an overflow error or a drain line error. If you go to another mini split system that you did not install, and it's not a Samsung, and you're going to go up onto the job site and you're like, hey, I got a communication error. Typically, people are going to go look, and most of tech support is going to tell you to look at the. They're going to tell you to look at the communication wire, or they're going to tell you to look for power in different areas. So a simple float switch install on a lot of other systems could cause a headache of a service call for that technician that hasn't been trained in these systems. What's great about the Samsung, by using this and utilizing this way of hooking up the overflow safety switch, it's going to point the technician in the right direction. So you're not going to spend hours trying to diagnose a communication error when the whole time was just an overflow safety switch. So that's super cool. That's what I really like about it. Plus, if you look, you know, you got they color code everything, so it really makes it almost foolproof. Or we used to call it when I was a firefighter, it's firefighter proof. So there's one set screw back here. I'm not going to remove it, but there's one set screw here. Let me see if I can get a. You can see that there's a set screw back in there. You take that one set screw out, this whole unit will come completely off. Obviously, we'll have to disconnect your line voltage and control wire. And then once you remove that, this one screw right here is what's going to help you to remove this. And if you've ever had to remove a fan motor on one of these mini split systems, you already know how daunting it can be. And when I tell you that when you take this screw off and this cover basically just comes right out and you get the motor in your hand without having to pry this coil way up, on a lot of those systems, you basically got to have to pry this coil like way up to get access to that blower motor. You don't have to. That one screw, and this comes right out. As well, you see this white clip here. Once this is removed, once the blower motor is removed, you take this clip out if you needed to. I don't see too many situations where you would want to remove the coil and leave the back plate on. Typically, if you're removing the coil, it's just easier to take the whole system off the wall. But for some reason, if you need to, you just take, it's not even a screw, it's just a clip. This little white piece clips out, and the copper that runs behind it allows you to gain access and pull that coil completely out of the wall bracket. So I'm going to try to go and do a quick
in your
overview.
experience, are other brands and model blower wheels that easy to take out, or do you recommend cleaning in place?
I've been doing it for a while, so for me, taking a blower wheel out of any system really isn't too daunting, but that's going to come with your experience. The only issue that I have, like I said, if you got a technician or you have somebody, one of your guys or you yourself are going out and you're not all that familiar with mini split systems in general, by all means, get the bib kit, put the bib kit on it. Put a little cover, like a little plastic cover over this. What's good on the Samsungs is they're pretty well covered, so I'm not really too worried about you as long as you don't spray it directly. But if your experience is very minimum in doing this style of system, then I just recommend putting the bib kit on and dropping the drain pan, and then getting in there and then just using the powered sprayer or whatever method you're going to use. Typically, you want some kind of powered water in there, whether it's a hose or something like that. Obviously, you don't want to drench it because you'll fill out the bucket super fast. But I've seen instances where you have a hot water heater. Another tip for my guys is I used to have them tap into the drain of the hot water heater with a nice hose, what do you call it? End for the hose, so that way you can control the flow. And then you get the hot water and clean it. So you don't have to. To answer the question, no, you don't have to. I recommend it because of the issue that you may run into, but there's workarounds. So if you got a technician or you're a maintenance guy or whoever's going to be cleaning the system, if they're like, listen, I'm not comfortable with doing that, by all means, put the bib around, clean the system, but before you assemble it, let it dry, and then hit it with some kind of maybe a PB blaster, or maybe not a PB blaster. PB blaster has a really heavy smell, but some kind of like WD-40. Hit that shaft with WD-40 where the set screw is, and then at least you're going to help protect yourself against that corrosion.
Also, Tim, while you're getting ready to go over to the cassette, I want to point out that the Quantum 2.0 also has what's called an auto clean feature. And on the auto clean feature, when you set that, it basically, once the indoor unit, the call for cooling ends, the fan will continue to run and it'll monitor the load on the blower. The humidity, the conditions on the inside of the unit. and it'll continue to run it'll run for anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes until it's completely dried the coil and completely dried the blower wheel, and then the unit will shut off. And so once you activate auto cleaning, you don't have to activate it, but once you activate the auto cleaning, it's going to run every time when the unit cycles off to dry that unit out to help keep that system clean.
Perfect, perfect. A lot of this information is on Samsung's YouTube page as well. So if you get on YouTube, you can find Samsung HVAC, and you'll be able to get a lot of this information on there, be able to watch videos, tear downs, cleanings and whatnot. So we have the 4-way cassette. Typically, okay, so you walk up on the system, you see the panels already pre-installed. I actually didn't install all the screws. Right now, it's just basically being held on by some clips in here, just so I can try to speed up the process. But to access the filter, there's 2 little tabs here. You just kind of pull on them. This filter, okay, so normally this would be attached here, so that way it doesn't fall on your head, right? What's great about this is you have the Samsung, and you see the way it's written there. This filter can go any way. You can point in any direction. So if you have a customer that wants to see it a certain way, at least you have that option. To remove this 4-way cassette panel, I'm gonna try to see if I can get that light a little further away. That way it's not too much shadows. There are set screws underneath each one of these little corner panels, and they do just pop out. They are tight. So at first, when you go to work on this system, that came off pretty easy, but when you first go to work on it, the plastic is pretty tight, so it may be a little more difficult, but don't be afraid. I haven't broken anything on the system yet, so if it can handle me taking it apart a million times, it should be able to handle anybody else. There will be set screws in here, so your set screws will be going there that actually secures it to the system, that holds it tight. Like I said, I don't have those on here because I want to be able to speed up this process for you guys. There are 2, see them here, there's these little like hooks, I guess you could say, coming from the unit. This is just going to help you to install this system, so you can put the screws on without having to juggle it or have another person. But basically, you're just going to pull on this little hook here, little whatever you want to call it, and then you're going to just slide this out. Now, once you get that down, I probably should have taken those out first. That's what I get for trying to rush. But there's 2 screws to take this panel out here. And this is going to give you access to the control board. It's going to give you access to all the plugs for the sensors. It's going to be the start process of taking this cover off as well. Now, one thing I want to point out as well, if you see this whole bottom on these 4-way cassettes, this foam is the insulation for the drain pan. The drain pan is actually a plastic drain pan that it goes completely around the unit. When you go to do a maintenance on this system, there's a little rubber plug here. Remove this little rubber plug. Removing this little rubber plug is going to be the best way to drain the drain pan. And this tongue twister. But yeah, removing this rubber plug is going to be your best way to remove the water and let the water drain from the drain pan. Now, I believe New Calgon, I saw it, I think I saw it on Google somewhere, but I believe there is a cleaning bib system made for these 4-way cassettes. So that may be something, if you're doing a lot of these 4-way cassettes, maybe something you want to purchase. When it comes to removing this, everything is pretty simple. When I went and did my hands-on, I did not tell the installer where to plug anything in at. I just basically, I gave him the 4-way cassette, the panel with the 4-way with the 4 turning vanes. I basically handed it to him. I said, "Here, put it in," and he was very he was impressed on how simple it was, because he basically looked at me with like a deer in the headlights. And when I was like, "It's going to be easy," he popped it on, and he's like, "Wow, these plugs only go in one spot, so there's not going to be any confusion on where to plug them in at." So it makes life a whole lot easier to disassemble, reassemble, and maintain this system. Samsung has done a great job in just doing that, and the engineering, the way they design these systems to be able to access everything and disassemble everything. How are we doing on time?
It is 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Okay, give me 10 more minutes, and we're gonna go ahead and just take this control board off. And I want to drop the drain pan so I can show you where the condensation pump is. On these systems, they do have a condensation pump built in, and it's gonna come out the side port here. I did mention in the previous that there is a limit. All your limits and your specifications are going to be in the knee pad, as Todd likes to call it, of the system. Once you're done using it to protect your knees, you want to open it up and make sure you read all the information. It's going to have all your torque specifications for the flares. It's going to have all your line set lengths. It's going to have a wealth of information that are going to answer questions for you before you even have to call tech support. It's going to just take that chance and sit down, give it a quick little look over. There is a quick install guide. The quick install guide is where you're going to find the torque specifications. On the larger manual, you may find it there, but it's just they put it almost right in front of your face, the torque specifications in the quick install guide. So that's an important thing to note as well. Now we have 2 screws, one here, and actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and remove the power first. So here's your power. It's your line voltage. Now, these line voltage and the control wire, to different sides of the unit. So that's my line voltage. And take my ground out. Boom. Slide that out. On this side, I have...
You had a question about the wiring. Just want to make sure we're clear that it's 14 gauge wire for the high voltage, but you must use a separate 16-2 shielded stranded wire for communication. You cannot run the communication through the 14 gauge high voltage wire like some of our competitors do.
Correct. These systems need that shielded wire. And another thing I want to point out, and this was actually something that Todd found, and we pointed out to the manufacturers, and that's once again, that's a difference that you're going to see with Tropic Supply, is that you have people like me, Todd, and Brad, as well as that we're constantly trying to find and nitpick these systems to, I guess, try to solve a problem before it becomes a problem. Todd went through the instruction, and we brought to the attention that in the installation guide, there is some information that is kind of misleading. I think it says that you can use like an 18-2 shielded. It says that you are allowed to extend the communication wire. So if you're reading the installation manual and you see those things, we have brought those up to Samsung, and they are going to be removing those items from the installation manual. So if you open the installation manual, you don't call technical support, and you're like, oh, well, it says in the manual you can extend the control wire. No, you cannot. The communication wire or control wire, or whatever you want to call it, it needs to be one continuous wire from the outside unit to the inside unit, whatever your inside units you're running. And the 16-2 shielded wire is what is recommended. Now, that being said, there have been circumstances in the past where a contractor didn't have access to 16-2 shielded. Then he used an 18-2 shielded, and yes, it worked. Another thing to point out is that shielded wire should be a stranded wire. But per Samsung's recommendation, and they really emphasize to us that it is that 16-2 shielded control wire. Will the 18-2 shielded control wire work? Yes, it maybe work, but per recommendation from the manufacturer, 18-2 continuous shielded wire. The shielding is to be grounded at the condenser and not at the inside unit. So hopefully that clears up any kind of, if you have read through it and you notice that, you're going to strike that and you'll see it. The new manuals are going to be coming out with different wording. So there's only 2 screws that hold this control board on. Oh, good, I didn't drop it. No. Oh, baby. All right. This is going to come out, and you're going to see that you have, I'm trying to turn this so you guys can see it. You have your wiring and here, and you're going to have all your overflow safety switch wire is there's like a little float sensor in this pan as well. That's going to trigger an error code. I believe it's the E153. That's going to let you know that the drain pan's full, and then that way you can go ahead and this is probably going to be your best bet to address that that error code is to go ahead and pull the drain pan, make sure that you do not have a clogged drain line or there's just a bunch of gunk in this drain pan. You'll see once I pull it out, it's really not too hard to gain access to. But see here, there's another cable here. And like I said, all these plugs, they only go in one way. So there's really no guesswork involved in taking these plugs out. And that's basically, that's your control board. Set that to the side. And now you have your control wires here and the power to your motor and power to the condensation pump. We're going to go ahead. There's 2 screws here. Another screw here. And like I said before, I had those technicians and installers, they totally disassemble the system super fast. There's basically, I don't know if you saw that, but there's like these little tiny hooks here. So when you take those 2 screws out, you basically just slide it to one side and it drops down. You can go ahead and just take the blower wheel out if you want. What's great about the 4-way cassettes is you can see there's a lot of space in between the blades. So you're not going to run into the issues that you have on the high wall systems where there's that really limited clearance and dust tends to build up. I don't think I've ever seen one of these clog up or even really get all that dirty to say at least. On each corner, you're going to see a screw like this, and you're going to remove this screw. And this is what's going to, and always, always, always remove this drain before you pull this pan out. Remove this drain so you don't get a nice shower right in front of the homeowner or the customer, and then they kind of look at you like, does this guy know what he's doing? So it's important, like I said, if you guys want me to come in there, I'll bring this whole setup and I'll spend as much time as you guys want going through this system so you guys are 100% confident with how to disassemble it. As the 4-way cassettes, I think they're a lot easier to work on. When you install this 4-way cassette, you can get to everything through the bottom. You really don't need to get to the top unless you're trying to do the flares. So if you're putting this in a situation where you have a hard ceiling, you're going to need to make sure you have access for the to be able to get to these flares. So you're probably going to have to put an access panel. Other than that, and be able to get to the drain line as well. But typically these are best installed in drop ceilings. But I have seen quite a few of these in hard ceilings. It's just if you're going to put it in a hard ceiling, just make sure you don't shoot yourself in the foot by not giving yourselves access. And this is it. That's the drain pan. I guess I should have pulled that plug, huh? Yeah, I ran this last week. That's what I get for putting my foot in my mouth. So anyways, you see the drain pan's basically here. It's all plastic, it's coated. And like you just saw, remove this rubber plug, right? I should do what I say. And that basically takes care of that. Here is your condensation pump, and here is your float switch. So if you need to gain access to this condensation pump to replace it, I don't think I've ever come across one that went bad, but it's good to drop that pan and make sure it's all cleaned out and make sure that this float switch is intact as well. While I have this out, these are good areas to go ahead and install your iWave or your LED UV lights. You can install them on the outside of the system if you'd like. Other than that, that's going to, one more thing I want to point out is you're putting this system in a commercial application and you are required to bring in makeup air, fresh air. This would be where you're going to tap in your makeup air, fresh air. But important to note that this doesn't pull the air in. So anytime you need to supply makeup air to the system, you're going to have to add a booster fan. There are hookups and instructions that we can provide you on how to power the booster fan from, or control the booster fan from the unit itself. So that way it turns on the booster fan when it's needed and not just running constantly. So that's something that we can help you with as well. If they don't have any questions, or if you have any questions, now I guess is the time to ask them, because I'm pretty much done with what I wanted to show you guys.
The only question was about UV LED lamps. Do you install in these high ceiling units, 1 or 2 or maybe 4? I've typically found in the ceiling cassettes, 1 is still enough, but you got to be real careful about the fact that when you put a LED light in these, that they do shine constantly. So you want to make sure it's not in an environment where, you know, there's a darkened room or master bedroom or something like that. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. That's why I typically recommend the iWave. And if you're going into a 4-way cassette, and you have a customer and they're going to want to put UV lights all the way around it, you're going to be coming close to the price of the iWave. So I recommend the iWave because I know the iWave works well. I've used it on my own personal mini split systems, and it was a night and day difference, the smell and everything in the house. So by all means, I highly recommend the iWave over the mini UV. It doesn't emit any lights. But one thing I do want to show you, with these iWave systems, if you have put one in and you're going back to do maintenance, one thing is important that these don't touch metal, or you don't get these close to any kind of steel or anything, which isn't usually a problem on the mini split systems. But if you see, these are like little brushes. If these brushes are all clogged and covered with dust, they're not working. So if you go back on a system that you installed one of these iWaves on, just get a nice, I would use a separate brush for this only, like a little toothbrush, and just make sure you brush these little brushes off as you work your way through the system, because that's going to help this function the way it's intended to.
Had another question, can the UV not be wired to cycle with the system? That's
No.
probably the only way you could do that would be to add a separate board that you can purchase through Samsung that adds an additional dry set of contacts. But still, same thing, you know, now you're going to have a blinking LED light. You know?
Yeah.
So each time the system cycles on or off, it's going to be coming on and shutting off. So I'm still not sure that that's quite a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, and exactly what Todd said, just because there's a workaround doesn't mean it should be worked around. I was just going to answer no to that question, but Todd is absolutely right. You know, where there's a will, there's a way. By all means, you can definitely do a workaround on that system and put a relay in. Samsung, what's great about Samsung is they really have thought about almost every situation a contractor is going to come in contact with, by being able to provide them with different relays and things and such to allow you to be able to use different functions, shut certain things off. So it is great that you can use that, but by all means, when you put a UV light on, yeah, you don't want a blinking light. Just have it so it stays on is definitely recommended. Another thing I want to recommend, and I want to make sure I cover this as well, is that some manufacturers, they require you to, when installing that float switch, they want you to break that communication wire. There are to be no breaks in a communication wire in these Samsung systems. Samsung provided super easy access and the ability to install a overflow safety switch. So go with what Samsung provides you, but do not break the communication wire. So I just want to make sure that's abundantly clear, because I've seen that in the past. I've also seen in certain areas where the inspectors want you guys to break these with a kill switch, right? Or a disconnect or some means of disconnecting the power in order to pass inspection. There, per manufacturer's recommendations, there are to be no breaks in the communication wire. You can break the line voltage, but do not break that communication wire. These systems, their communication is less than 1 volt DC. I think it's like 0.3, 0.5 volts DC communication. So it's not gonna, there's no danger in touching that wire. I mean, of course, it doesn't mean you want to touch the ground, but there's no danger in touching that wire. So that's just important for you guys that have come across this situation. I believe most of the contractors in the state of Florida haven't really had that issue, but I know there are a handful of guys that have come to us with that issue. So do not break that communication wire by any means.
All right, Tim, we're at 9:15, so let's go ahead and get to the questions.
Yep, I think Nicole has those.
Yeah,
Okay.
let me share my screen.
So everybody get your chat window up. We've got 4 questions we're going to ask, and the first person to type the correct answer into the chat window will win one of the 4 prizes, and we'll be ready to go.
Okay. All righty. So question number 1, true or false? Samsung recommends breaking the communication wire when installing an overflow safety switch. Question number 2, what method of corrosion testing does Samsung use on their coils? Question number 3, true or false? You must be a pre-approved dealer to access the Samsung HVAC contractor app. Okay. And question number 4, what's the best method to drain a drain pan on Samsung's 4-way cassette? So last thing, is there any questions that we didn't answer?
No, looks like we're good. All right, that's good. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you at our next.